My name is Jonah Mossberg, and I am a queer farmer. A few years ago, I realized I felt isolated in the work I was doing. I became curious. What were other queer farmers up to? Where did they live, and what were their farms like? Were other people also feeling alone in their farming situations? I really wanted to understand if queerness and farming had a connection, and if queers were thriving in rural parts of the country. I decided to make a movie, and I had the privilege of traveling the country from east to west and places in between, visiting over 30 farms and asking queer farmers all kinds of questions, and getting all kinds of answers just because I had a camera. The movie focuses on 7 of the places I visited, but in no way is a complete summary of what all queer farmers have to say. The truth is, I had no idea what I was getting myself into, and now I only have more questions.
Can I ask you a question first? Like, how do you define queer?
Different, offbeat, oddball.
Like, for me, queerness is not really sexuality. It's an event of interruption, and it's all about intelligibility, you know, intelligibility of gender, of what I do in my bedroom or, I don't know, in an airplane, whatever. It's like not being an answer, not being easily answered, like being a walking question mark, you know, like queerness for me is that.
It's a fairly open and vague enough blanket term that it can encompass just about anything in terms of, you know, spectrum of sexuality or the way people identify.
For me, it means that my sexuality is not really based in the gender of a person, or that the way that my attractions aren't based just on on the gender that I assume someone is, or the gender that someone was assigned at birth.
Part of being queer is about celebrating the excitement of being gay or lesbian or bisexual or transgendered or questioning or intersexed or whatever. There should be a W in there for whatever, I think.
For me, gay really refers to just being more of the orientation of being gay, and queer has much more a sense of the political awareness around it.
For me, it's rooted at looking at capitalism and patriarchy and all of the systemic oppressions and violence.
You know, Ellis could, you know, have more obstacles, you know, with her sexual identity, whereas I personally feel like I have more issues with like racial identity, especially like being a woman of color, queer, and I personally feel like I feel dominated by non-people of color.
I think queer is also a verb, and I really like it as a verb, to like queer something.
Yes.
You know, to queer something is to like transgress, to fuck it up, to change its meaning, to own it, really, to make it your own. And I feel like that's what happened with the word queer. It was like derogatory at one point. A lot of older folks don't like the word queer because it used to be something that was really awful, had really awful connotations. But we changed it and took it over and made it into our identity. It's kind of genius in that you can't define queer. It's hard to put like some bounds around it.
I'll take you swimming, follow me. Nighttime where there is none for the sea. I'll keep on living incomplete as long as I still wake up from my dreams. Never see the end of our own stream. If we don't make time where there is none, move your feet. I'll build you a boat out of lightning and fill it with pearls. We'll float world's end and touch it, return just to prove the impossible possible. Sure, you'll be there when our time comes. feel the same thing. We're waiting and waiting and stop. I feel faint from accepting this terrible loss. The time you thought you'd saved is just gone. We'll make time where there is none.
If you need a village to raise a child, you definitely need a community to have a sustainable food source.
Do you help take care of the goats? You do? What do you do?
He milks sometimes, and he leads the goats around. You feed them, and you feed them. The watering's still a little heavy, but we're getting there.
The guy that owns the property next to us, Denzel, has he's been around the area, and his family have been around the area forever, so they know everybody. And
He'll tell people, you know, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know those girls. You know, don't be talking about them.
And if you saw
when
Denzel,
you don't know
you'd be
anything.
like,
I mean, he is a big farmer guy. You know, I mean, like, for real.
yeah, for real.
But he just loves us, and he loves Merrick. You know, he brings the goats bread, and he gives them bales of hay, and
he loves the goats. Yeah, and I mean, we've gone to several farms, you know, in the acquisition of chickens or rabbits or goats, and you know, it's just a old farming couple, and you would think, oh,
yeah, this is gonna be awful. How is
it's
this
gonna be a little awkward because you know we're walking in who we are with our son. I mean, we don't hold anything back. We're just who we are, but they've always been nice.
One of our friends said, yeah, you're changing Kansas one family at a time. You know, I think when people realize, especially in small towns, it's like, I'm just like you. I've got a farm, I'm raising a family. You know, we work hard. And we were living in town, and we decided we really wanted to move to the country. We wanted to have a family, and when we had our baby, we wanted to do it out here. You know, we wanted to have space for them to run around and play. And as soon as we got land, some close friends of ours were like, hey, we've got these 2 pet goats that we're not doing anything with, and they're just living in this tiny pen, and we're moving away. Can you take them? And so once we had those 2, we were like, well, if we've got goats, we might as well have a milking goat so that we can actually have the benefits of having goats. And then people were like, oh, you've got goats, you've got milk, I want milk. So then it's like, okay, well, we better get another goat because
we didn't have enough milk.
We don't have enough for everybody. And then we started having so much milk.
We had milk, and we had more milk, and we had more milk. And I did not want to throw it away. You know, I did a lot of research on what people do with milk. How can you use milk? You know, is it a fertilizer? Is it a, you know, what? Aside from being something edible. And developed, and it took a long time, a way to use it that would last basically forever, you know? You turn it into soap. A log of soap that has been poured and is actually ready to come out of the mold and then sit for another couple, 3 weeks. basically just bang it out. So, there you go. One log of soap.
How do you all identify?
I'm mom and she's ma. That's what people usually want to know.
Do you mean more like, I mean, any ways you identify that you feel like are important?
I'm Courtney.
Mostly we just identify as a family. You know, this is the core of who we are. We're a family and we take care of each other. We have many more straight family friends now than when we were a couple without a child. I think more than moving out here was having a son compromised our queer community.
We have more in common with straight families and straight couples since we've had a child than I ever really realized before. And so it's just easier to have community with people that you have a similar philosophy with rather than a common
sexual orientation
or lifestyle choice.
I hate
I
that.
hate that too. I do too.
Yeah, babe.
Hi.
I tell people my name is Karen Washington. I'm an urban farmer. I grow food. I feed people body and mind. Hi, girls. So these are my girlfriends. I have 12 of them. So I'm a bit of a player. So these are my girls. And even within, we talk about our farming friends, and it's a question that's not asked when you're side by side digging trenches, you're side by side turning compost, you're side by side laying down seeds and doing propagation and doing pruning, and you're sweating just like the person next to you is sweating, and your back is aching next to the person whose back is aching and your hands are dirty, that the conversation that someone turns around and says, "Excuse me, by the way, are you gay?" And I'm saying, if they were to bring that up, are they asking me, am I happy in what I'm doing? Sure. Am I gay as being a lesbian? Sure. It doesn't come up in the conversation. I think because as farmers, as gardeners, healers, our intent is really working on that land. And I don't think that the land asks that question if you're gay or straight. I don't think the plants ask that question. So why would it matter to people? The seeds are not asking that question. The compost is not asking that question. The roses, when I sniff, is not asking that question. The chickens don't ask that question. You know, when I go feed the chickens in the morning, they're not saying, "Oh, here comes the gay farmer. I'm not going to eat from her. I'll wait for the straight ones to come." Every time I would go and visit farms or, you know, go and talk around the country around agriculture, and even working here in the city with my farmers market, I noticed, like, where are the black farmers? Like, where are the black farmers? Where are people who look like me? And I was dumbfounded and astonished by the fact that at one time when there were millions and millions of black farmers in this country, millions and millions of acres of land that black people owned, cultivated as part of our history to this country, that at this point in time there are only several hundred black farmers in this country. And as we move into this sort of systems of sustainable agriculture, if we don't do something within the next 10 years to get people of color, black people, black young kids into farming, then you're going to look at a system in place where one race of people will be controlling our bread basket. Why is it that black young kids, especially in the urban areas, don't want to go into farming, look at working on the land, still part of our history of slavery? That how do we as black people come together and move on to a new direction where we are starting to be inclusive in this talk about sustainability and urban agriculture and agriculture in general, and how do we bridge the urban and rural farmer, black farmer together so that we can together as black people encourage a younger generation to know about the history of the black farm and black movement in this country around agriculture, so that our kids can grow up and say with pride that, you know what, I want to grow up and I want to be a farmer.
Historically, queers have, pretty much been run off the farm, or else just felt like, they wanted to get away from the farm as quickly as they could. So, queer people who have grown up in farming communities have, for the most part, left them and, gone to the cities as the places where, they thought they could find queer culture. And, for queer people, for the most part, their sexuality isn't about reproduction, but lots of us still have this sort of creative urge to to create life in tangible ways. And I think that growing food is just such a beautiful way to feel the procreative energies of the earth and channel the procreative energies of the earth.
This is so important because this space, not just this farm, but queer farms in general, because they give the option for people to come that have sort of ridden this inertia into cities, because that's their only option. Like, what I'm doing here is building something that is going to be around for that 8-year-old queer kid in Las Vegas who like stares out of their window, yearning for a place to be in nature growing tomatoes.
This is a little short mountain farm, and it's 4 miles away from the community where I live.
I guess a cooperative group model, because where I live, we're consensus-based, so I'm used to that. And we're thinking, this farm we're all investors, but many of us don't have money, so we're investors of our time. And then we get to keep some of what we make, and then some of it gets put into a larger pool, like resources, where over time maybe we can buy the farm from by the way.
I'm gay too. Everyone in this documentary is gay, duh. Do we want this?
Yeah.
See how things work here in the community?
It's about 300 acres, and he approached the community and just, said, I want to start a farm. I want the community to have opportunities and a working farm.
It's great. You can't have a farm without a community. You can try, but you'll probably burn out or break your leg, and there'll be no one to replace you.
It's hard to be me fully with these members, but at the same time, I already had one member, and I don't want to say that they canceled because they said that they were trying to feed a family of 6, and I have to take them on their word, but they were, these fundamentalist religious types, and I don't know. I don't know if she figured out I was gay and was like, goodbye. So it's hard.
Why wouldn't they like some of the folks who come here?
Just probably because they dress too crazy or something. I don't know. They don't want too much weirdness around. They don't want to be like shocked in their reality. But they're not. We've been here for over 30 years. Gay people have been living here for over 30 years. Hippies even longer than that. So everyone's fine, There's no problems here.
By the way, is really involved with the local farmers, and it's sort of like, remember that whole interest-based thing I was kind of talking about? They're interested in farming, personal lives aside. There's a farmer here right down the road who's a CSA, who's a family, and he's from the south, and I let him use 1/3 of the potato area to grow his own potatoes because his field was flooded this spring, and it was really great, and he comes over and we get along, but I was in like full drag at a party, and he was there, and he was like weirded out, and then he said, I wouldn't be able to work with you in the field if you wore that into the field. And I was like, that's inappropriate to say to me right now. Like, I'm at my own, this is my home, Keep that to yourself.
I think this farm is not just like, it's not a gay farm, in any respect. It's just like got a bunch of gay people on it, and everyone else just likes it, because it's a cool farm, because gays make things cooler, doing things well and with style and making things aesthetically beautiful are anything queer. Those are things that heterosexuals would do if they could.
Heteronormativity robs my interiority from me, labels me and discards me, assumes my insides, discards me, does not want to know the story behind me, behind Jimmy Rose. And commercial agriculture robs the story behind food, does not offer it, hides it, conceals it.
Since so much farming is people reviving farming in places where, the average age of farmers is aging out into the 70s, it's just requiring new blood, and there's some regions where immigrants are providing most of that new blood, and so you have a whole new face to farming that challenges stereotypes, because they're people from another part of the world that are have had some disruption in their farming practice, and they're coming and picking up on sort of land where there's been a disruption in the farming practice. And I think that seeing more women running farms is a really exciting development that challenges the stereotypes of of who's a farmer and who can do that kind of work. And I think that Queers on the Farm not only challenges the stereotype of who is a farmer and what does a farmer look like, but it also challenges the stereotype of like what do queers look like, and where do you find queers, and what are queers doing?
Like, the customers not only get this summer salad mix with baby kale and edible flowers and lemon basil and things, they're getting to see the story behind their food, which is kind of like what I would want people to get to know me about, the story behind me, my labels that you put on me. It's the same thing. There's this penchant, like I'm saying, for answers and answerism, whether it's the food, kale, like that's at the grocery store, or kale, what's going on with that kale? Where did it come from? Who grew it? How much did they get paid? How are they doing? How did it get here? what went into growing it, you know? It's kind of like that with, I want that to be about me. Oh, Jimmy, he's gay. Why is he gay? Where did he come from? What does he think about at night? What does he dream about? What are his hopes, his fears? Is he in love? You know, I mean, it's a no-brainer why I'm involved in farming.
If you stand far back enough, it's just one big thing. So like we can focus in on the farm, but it's just like another organ. It's a nice organ, you know, it's like the heart or something. No, maybe a liver. Liver. Maybe it's muscle. It's something big.
A grower. A food producer.
But you could also farm butterflies, you could farm flowers. Farmer is someone who attempts to cultivate something bigger than themselves.
One who grows food for other people.
When I think of farming as like smaller scale, traditional farming, family farming, not huge agribusiness farming, I don't consider that really farming. I think that's just kind of commodity.
Big monocrop farms where there are no animals, sort of mutated gardens and not really farms. That they were called farms, but they were mutated gardens because sort of a cancer of gardening where there wasn't this integration and this sort of the scale. And so I think farming really is being the facilitator of food production and, you know, as permaculture describes it, sort of taking the lessons from nature.
We're just saying that a farm doesn't have to look like, you know, a barn and a cow and straight lines and tractors. There's all different ways that farms and growing food can look like. And that's part of being the queerness of it all. There's a lot of different ways to do farming.
Cornbread and butter beans and you across the table, eating them beans and making love as long as I am able. Hoeing corn and cotton too, and when the day is over, ride the mule and cut the fool and love begin all over.
So is there any history of farming in your family background?
Yeah, definitely. My dad is the most recent because he literally comes from generations and generations of farming. That's a hard question to ask black folks, I think. You know, that's always a hard question to ask black folks, especially. It's a hard question to ask anybody in America who's been here for more than 2 generations, you know. But it's really a hard question to ask black folks because, like I was telling my coworkers today, my young coworkers, all of you come from farming families, you know what I'm saying? So you're just remembering shit. You're not so much learning anything new. Put your fingers in the dirt and it'll come back, you know.
Whoa, a rusty apple. Last of a kind. Uh-oh. Wow. It's good. It's good. You never judge an apple by its skin.
Maybe the question is so much like, you know, what does my queerness bring or how does my queerness affect or impact my farming? I think it's so much as like, what does justice, because that's my motivation in doing it. Anybody can plant a tomato, anybody can raise a tomato, but what does justice in food look like from my black, gay perspective, you know? To call myself queer, I don't know. It sounds like outside to me. And I think that a lot of what my focus has been as an African American man who loves men is that it's like, no, I'm not outside. I'm a part of my community, you know what I'm saying? I'm African American, I'm Christian, I was raised in the black church, I was, you know what I'm saying, I'm all of these things, and I don't feel like I have to choose in between them and who I am, you know what I'm saying, as a sexual and emotional person. So I think to me why queer is difficult is because it brings to question the idea, you know, that I'm not a contributing, useful, needed member of African American society.
We're in the Penridge Children's Garden, which is kind of a historical site for gardening in West Philadelphia. It was established in this neighborhood about 20, maybe almost 30 years ago. Basically to kind of give the kids of the neighborhood a place to grow food and to have a safe space. There was a lot of violence and crime sort of creeping into the neighborhood, I guess. And this was kind of an antidote to that. So I'm just kind of a volunteer caretaker right now. I sort of took it on because I didn't want it to go without any care. And I know that a lot of the people who have been taking care of the garden have kind of run out of time. People are moving away. Folks really want to be involved, but the neighborhood has changed. It's gentrified. And just in the past year, like most of the people who are on this side of the street have moved out, you know, so most of the kids, and they supplied a lot of the kids who came to this garden. You know, the kids grew up and left the neighborhood. So, yeah, I'm just here to kind of help out and keep it standing up until the next group of kids comes through. Well, I am working now in Bartram's Garden, which is a historical site owned by a wealthy and long gone Quaker family. We're actually putting a farm there. It's a partnership with a few agencies in this organization that I'm working for now called the Urban Nutrition Initiative, which has done work for many years in West Philadelphia with youth, mostly youth of color, mostly low wealth people, to grow food, build sovereignty. So I'm going to be doing a lot of the same work over at Bartram, but I'll be working in a totally different community. I actually will be working in West Philly where I live, so that feels good.
You know, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer people, you know, have a side or part of ourselves that connects with the deep things, I feel like, in ways maybe that heterosexual, you know what I'm saying, or heteronormative society doesn't. I know a lot of cultures sort of bear that out and celebrate us, you know, on varying levels, you know, because of that connection to the deep. So in that way, I do feel like maybe being queer and being a farmer has a connection from a spiritual standpoint. There's something about farming I always tell my young co-workers, you know, this is a nurturing work. So some people might consider you sissies for doing this work. Because I've heard that before too, you know, planting flowers. Amongst all of the terrible things that black people think about folks who work in a garden anyway, you know, we take a lot of guff for that thing. But there's nothing, you know, about it that's unmanly, that you're feeding your community. It's like, even the language that I use, I know when I'm working with them oftentimes, you're putting the seeds to bed. Because I really want them to understand that you got to take care of this. This is not an inanimate object. They consider this to be nothing different than a rock or something else hard, a pebble in their shoe, you know. So I use a lot of, you know, anthropomorphic, you know, I think analogies with them to sort of make them recognize this is a living, breathing creature, you know, because I believe it. These are families. Look at their family resemblances, you know what I'm saying? Place them accordingly, you know.
I think that as adults, of course, we set, you know, really necessary limits and boundaries, of course, with kids, and that we're supposed to, of course, you know, but like I start questioning it when my straight co-workers can come to work with their husbands and wives and be very wifely and very husbandly with one another in front of the kids, you know, and then I get to, you know, like there's this whole, you know, I got this, but no explanation. The day that I left, my last day of work there, so we went out into the field and I had all the guys do a walkthrough, and we do noticing walks a lot, you know, and so they walked through and they noticed what was there and what was beautiful. They said goodbye to things and they thanked the land, they thanked individual crops and spaces. We sat down, we laughed and joked and reminisced, and then we made a spread of this beautiful meal, a lot of it food from our garden, you know, just a really delicious meal. It was really good, and they love to cook and love to eat, you know. So I explained to them, I guess, just gotten engaged, and you know, all eyes were kind of on me, and I was like, you know, and then I told them that it was my fiance's name is Owen Taylor, and he lives in New York, and we're gonna get married. And to a man, all the guys stood up and applauded me. You know, there was lots of cheering and hugs, and you know, people wanting to come to the wedding, and so yeah, that was really beautiful.
I want you to take all of me, take me to the farm. When we're in the rows, when we're in the hay, I will hold you oh so close and wash the day away.
Different. We're not the put in the box kind of. In fact, my nickname, this is no kidding, is Crazy K. Call me Crazy. I'm like, make sure it's with a K.
How do you feel about that nickname?
I like it actually. I'm here, they call me Crazy. I mean, everything from people in restaurant business to farmers. Crazy K. I like it.
Fruit Loop Acres is a combo name to get as many double entendres in it as we could possibly think of. One is we're a pair of fruits. And we're loopy.
And what we do though, it's a closed loop system here. Everything, there's no waste that comes out of here. You know, we put our garbage out maybe every 3 weeks. You know, we recycle everything, compost everything.
And then we're inside the 465 loop for Indianapolis, and we will source from heirloom trees and anywhere we find fruit going to waste. If we can find a way to use it or
and
someone to
forage
sell
it
to, we forage within the 465 loop.
And I'm what you call an agripreneur. Ever since I got out of the Air Force in 1985, I've been doing some kind of ag, environmental, ecological work, funding myself and believing in myself and doing what I love. This is a 3/4 acre wildlife, certified wildlife habitat and urban fruit farm here right close to downtown Indianapolis.
I've been partners with Kay for 7 years now, and she needed pollinators, so I became a beekeeper, and generally I do what I can to help us grow as partners and in business and in the community.
Hey, you know, it's really, you know, we're in the food desert and we don't have access to good food, not even organic food, okay? The neighborhood is very depressed and oppressed. A lot of vacancies, a lot of foreclosures. What you read about in the papers happens right here. But if we saw the future that fruit, perennial crops, were going to be more the thing to grow, because for me it was working smarter, not harder. And so I kind of cultivated this in a permaculture fashion, which means permanent agriculture, and it really has blossomed into its own living biosphere.
She uses weeds as indicators as what food will work in the spot. So she will let these broadleaf things just grow to see how they do, and then she'll remove them and put in like the rhubarb.
We don't have any city ordinances that protect land like this yet. Anything over 12 inches is considered high weeds. So I'm always like kind of watching my P's and Q's there with the Board of Health, code compliance. Because, you know,
it's an education process.
Totally illegal in a way here in the city. All our fruit is no spray. How we can do this is that we have a lot of biodiversity is really the key. You know, things to attract beneficials, things to bring the birds in to help fight the mosquitoes, the other insects. Japanese beetles, not here, not here. But we have about 45 different varieties of native trees and shrubs, and then about almost 30 different kinds of fruits growing here. So we like to introduce new things into the food chain here into Indianapolis. Like, we'll show you a shrub over there. It's called a Juneberry. And everybody around here thought, you know, it was just a bird kind of berry, and nobody knew it was edible until I kind of introduced it to some of the restaurant owners or the chefs. And now it's like one of the hottest berries in the city. Everybody wants Juneberries. Well, first time this summer we had you pick up by appointment only. That was really exciting. So, cherries and black raspberries.
We have a monthly subscription service where we make a trip to the farmer's market, show up at people's door once a month all year round. I think we've settled in on 5 neighborhoods over 2 days. That's doable for us with our busy schedules, where we load it up with our stuff and represent about 20 more farms and make this like the old school cart that used to show up where people could buy off all their produce needs off the cart. We're doing that in the city again.
It's called Basic Roots Community Foods. City Farmer Day is the best. It's the best because your space is more condensed, so you can manage it better. Plus, you have the vitality of the city around you, you know? You get the cars, you get interstate, you get a lot of sirens, you get a lot of drama. So it's really exciting. I grew up on a 140-acre, actually corn and soybean farm that was, the farm was built by my great-grandfather. Dad, we raised everything that we ate. We had sheep, we had cattle, just enough to feed the family. So I was really, knew what a sustainable farm was. Then I left for the military at age 17, but the biggest thing was that I was gay and they had cameras on me, but they never could prove it, so. By the time I was out, they had stripped me of all my stripes, took away everything. I really wanted to get back to my roots of being a sustainable farmer somehow. And that's where I am today.
My name is Elijah, and I'm a volunteer here at Toon Farm in Falkville, Alabama. Certified organic farming happening here. This is a first-year run farm by my brother.
Hello, my name's Oliver Flowers, and my partner Suze and I are running a small 3-acre vegetable farm in rural Alabama. Totally fell in love with Alabama. Being from Louisiana, I really didn't have any interest in ever exploring Alabama. Louisiana thinks it's a shithole, but beautiful here. The toenail of the Appalachians.
So I never lived in the South before. However, this is like the very, very southern reaches of Appalachia, and I grew up in the very, very northern region of Appalachia. Out here, people know how to do stuff. People know how to do so much stuff and are so willing to I don't know, participate, to teach other people. And I think as a younger person here, a lot of the elders are really excited to teach us stuff.
Pete, the older hay farmer that comes out, taught me how to drive a tractor, taught me how to start to learn to fix a tractor. He taught me how to drive a bulldozer, you know, little stuff. That's not little at all, but I don't know. He was looking to educate other people about continuing his way of life. And that David, a friend of ours who's a pastor down at a church in town, he keeps bees on the property, and every time he comes out to keep bees, do his work with it, he sets us up in the bee suits and like shows us the ropes about everything. People have just been extremely accommodating despite my reservations. Like, I was totally wrong, basically, and I'm always thankful when I'm proven wrong, but I was especially wrong about Alabama.
I would say I'm as out here as I am anywhere that I go. It's not something I broadcast. It's not something other people broadcast to me. When I live my life, I just live my life as a human being, a member of the greater community. And being trans man is a part of my life, but it doesn't define my life.
Not like they're thinking, oh my gosh, that person's trans, I had no idea. They don't know what that means. They aren't thinking about that. They're like, oh, that guy had some like weird something's going on there. I don't know what though. So it's my own hang-ups, I think, that I'm still working on getting over, which this is the first season I've ever like worked out shirtless, so it'll take time.
How's it feel?
It's awesome. I love it. It's wonderful. It's so great. I've been waiting. I've been waiting for years. I've been waiting since I was a kid. I've been waiting since my mom told me to put my shirt on when I was 5. Like, I've been waiting a long time. I'm thankful that it's finally here.
And if there were a need to make that public, I would. For example, I attend local church here. The church I attend is a full gospel Christian evangelical church. And I guess their philosophy is hate the sin, love the sinner. They believe that it is a sin to be homosexual. But they're fully welcoming of anybody that walks into their church. So much so that they would encourage you to come back. I went there for me, for personal enrichment, and ended up continuing to go to be an example to the younger people that are there. Because I look different, and I act different, and my views are a little different, but I'm still a faithful follower, so they have to respect me in that brother-sister relationship. I would love to have those kids look at me and think that they could grow up and be someone like me, and not have to leave their community or have to leave their faith or lose their family because of it. Even if that just means being a freak there or being the freak show there, I'm happy to do that for people here because the young people especially need it. They need those people, especially if they don't see it anywhere else except at TV. They need to know that this is real life and you can be anybody you want to be.
This is like the buckle of the Bible Belt down here. So like it doesn't really come up. I'm sure people make their assumptions, but we haven't experienced any like negative, like direct negative, repercussions of our identities.
I can tell people know I'm different, but what different means, I don't know. When I look at Suze and I from the outside, I see 2 homos trying to hang out with each other, and it just looks strange, but I think people are happy enough that we're in a hetero relationship that those things kind of just go by the wayside. They don't really care. They're like, well, that doesn't make any sense, but at least they're straight. Okay, whatever. I don't really like that so much. Like, I wish I could be more forthcoming with that information.
It's so much easier to focus on like what you have in common than what is different about you. So while I think people see us as really different in a lot of ways, like especially just appearance, like I get read as male all the time, which I have no problem with. I actually love it. And when people realize, once I speak usually is when they like clue into like, oh shoot, you a woman. Like,
around here it's a queer farm. Many of the farms here are using herbicides, pesticides, and lots of other poisons on the food, and they definitely think we're queer when we go around and kill bugs by hand and check under leaves to look for eggs. So definitely this is a queer farm in many, many ways, besides just who the people sleep with. We probably brought more queers here 2 weeks ago than have ever been here at one time to Falkville, Alabama, 1,200 people population.
I did ask folks to not glam it up all the way because we do have to live here full time, but that could be my own fears. I'm not saying that that's based on anything. That could be all in my head. Well, one of my friends asked if he could wear a red Speedo and a gold wig and farm the whole week, and I was like, I mean, yeah, but I don't know, if we were back there, maybe, but like right on the highway, I don't know.
Labeling something as queer sets up this dichotomy of everything else being not queer. And this whole world is so queer. A lot of people tend to focus on like being oppressed peoples instead of being like super privileged peoples in so many different ways. So it just depends on what aspect of your identity you choose to focus on. But I would like to see more people encouraged, more queers encouraged to move out to the country, out to rural areas, if that's in their heart. Right now, my disconnection from a whole bunch of other queers is like, I would rather that than my disconnection from the land, I guess, at this point. Like, I feel secure enough in who I am, and I think that time in the city was important, but like, now I am, like, this is real. This is where I'm supposed to be. I feel it in every part of my body, in every part of my mind.
People who are living urbanly here in Berkeley are people that probably rarely see goats, if they see them at all. Their parents probably have very rarely seen goats, and their grandparents maybe saw goats when they were growing up, but not after they sort of came of age. So a lot of people don't recognize them as goats. And people say, are those llamas? Are those, there's a few other ponies? Llamas, ponies, those are kind of the near misses. And then other people say, what kind of dogs are those? A lot of people are really delighted to see them and find them to be amazing. And, you know, I hope the future for humankind involves returning some to our lives out of doors. Even bees that spend all their time in the hive get out and fly half the time. And, you know, it's like, we're not blind mole rats that just stay in their burrow and dig all day. And it seems like that's what our society is asking us to do with a lot of the work that people are doing today. Green Fairy Farm is a household. Green because we're oriented towards ecological and trying to move our urban existence further on the continuum of sustainability. You know, I have like right now 3 milking goats, a yearling male, a bunch of babies, and then we have rabbits and chickens, and we have about 30 fruit trees. Fairies are, they're a movement of gay men that came out of the 70s that were much more interested in exploring what it meant to be gay men among themselves and not interested in just assimilating to straight culture and straight society. And I think we're more inspired by feminism, you know, to sort of embrace the feminine and then also deconstruct gender expectations, those kinds of things. Not to say it's not a problematic community. You know, we deal with misogyny and racism and internalized homophobia and ableism all in the fairy community. And I consider myself disabled politically, but then I get people who argue with me, you know, like non-disabled people. Disabled people get it, that I'm politically allied with disabled people, despite the fact that I have few physical limits. My differently formed hands evoke a lot of feelings from people, and people treat me very much like I can't do things. It's, you know, like people open doors for me and open car doors, and some people even that have poor impulse control take things out of my hand and manipulate them for me. You know, And so it's an interesting way to move through the world. The animals don't seem to have trouble with my disability, but the goats are all chill with my hands. And they know that, oops, that I'm pretty alpha. Well, goats are a creature. They're rambunctious and wild, they're individuals, they're playful, they're really sexual. They have lots of raunchy sex, like male goats pee in their mouth and on their legs and get stinky and feel like that's a big turn on, and lick everywhere, you know, they blow themselves, they lick the females, they drink the girls' pee, you know, they hump each other, the females hump each other, the males hump each other. So goats are, but also their personalities are playful and they're individualistic. They don't clump, they stand out. And so I think as we think of ourselves as queers and sort of an other, goats represent us much more. And in sort of, they're smarter, they're more creative, they're more conscious of what's going on, whereas sheep are more conscious of what the leader has to say. And so sheep are followers, goats are adventurers, and I think as queers, our lives are adventures in this society. It's hard to trust food in our society, and so then when the regulators are saying, well, it's the danger is milk, it's raw milk that's dangerous for people, that's because people have not had access to raw milk, and so it's easy to think that milk is contaminated and that it has to be cleaned in order to be edible. And that's because people don't have that connection, as opposed to the other way around, you know, that it's industrial farming that contaminates milk and puts, you know, adulterants into it. I came out before the AIDS epidemic, so, and pretty much from the time I was 16 till I was 41, I volunteered at the Berkeley Free Clinic in the Gay Men's Health Collective in their HIV prevention section. And it's really interesting how when straight people, heterosexuals, transmit HIV between each other, through the history of the disease, people have treated those people as sort of the innocent victims of AIDS, you know, like how could they have known they would have been at risk? And of course, you know, straight people don't use condoms because that's where babies comes from, so it's perfectly natural, and so it's an innocent infection. Whereas when, you know, gay men take a risk and don't use a condom, then they should have known better and they were stupid. And so there's this notion of who's clean and who's not, who's innocent and who's guilty, and that straight people should be trusted, you know, like not using a condom with your straight partner, well, of course you trust them, but gay people should never trust each other. And, you know, that, I think it's similar with sources of food, like raw milk, you know, do you trust the animal, the producer, where it's coming from? And again, there's a notion that large corporations are trustworthy and that small-scale farmers are not, and there's people that are reversing that today, but I think that's been history. About straight, that vision of how people are supposed to live in suburbs or the city. So, you know, squatting is a queer act, you know, because it's revolutionary and it transforms the whole notion of, you know, living in a extended, non-traditional commune, you know. Like those are queer acts because you're tearing down the straight, the absurd, poisonous system that's there. So yeah, so farming in the city and turning a suburb into a fruiting, you know, neighborhood is definitely queer. With queers, there's this pull towards life and plants and generation and fancying and sort of holding on to the rare and the antique. You know, there's this notion of gay men and antiques, you know, and I think it's similar with plants, you know, gay men and rare plants and neat things. You know, we fall into this archetype of the cultivator of rarity. And is it because, you know, we know what it means to be the only one? You know, like, is that a sort of part of our psychology as young queers growing up and not thinking anyone else is like us and having to sort out our feelings and actualize, you know, like really sort them out and then come to some self-acceptance and self-understanding, that then we have an appreciation for the rare and the unusual, for the things that have been cast aside. I don't know.
What do you think the gayest vegetable is?
I don't know. That's such a good question. Rainbow chard?
Well, I mean, there's rainbow chard, but that's like obvious.
That's cheating. It's pretty gay, especially if it's rainbow chard. Not rainbow chard.
Have you heard rainbow chard a lot? It's pretty gay.
When I wake up, I soak up the sun and I listen to the trees as they rustle their wisdom back at me. And the sun lights through their leaves to shine on me. Flies won't fly, 'cause her wings are cold, and the leaves I knew are just too frozen to shake their tune. And the light sets on the sea instead of me.
Oh my God, we were talking about this where I live, and there are a lot of, I call it homonormative, like male homonormative, you know, it's like very phallic, phallus. So they were like, okra. I was like, they're like, zucchini. I was like, oh my God. Cucumbers. I was like, why does the gayest vegetable have to be like the shape of a penis, you know?
The gayest vegetable, one of those huge orange carrots, I guess? I don't know.
Purple carrots. And sometimes the legs of the carrots are crossed in a very gay fashion. They are, right?
Turnip, I don't know. Cucumber, ouch.
And the eggplant came down, it was kind of in two sacks. It looks like a set of balls. But yeah, I would say that eggplant would probably be the gayest vegetable. Besides maybe a cucumber or a great big zucchini.
There are times when the sun won't shine and the flies won't fly, 'cause her wings are cold and the leaves I knew are just too frozen to shake their tune. And the light sets on the sea instead of me. Through their leaves, the light sets on the sea instead of me.